these suspects, these accused, they're among us right now. And they will remain this afternoon, tonight, tomorrow, next week if we don't do something.
Welcome back to Closer Look across the Village Media Network. It's no joke. It's the first day of April with Michael Friscolanti, our editor-in-chief here at Village. Zach back in the room at the controls again this evening. First of all, a tip of the hat and kudos to you. Thoroughly enjoyed your editorial piece on the FOI.
Well, thank you. Yeah, that did drop this morning. Done. Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah. This is an issue we've talked a lot about on the show, and it's an issue that we're talking a lot about as journalists. It's Jessica Smith-Cross, our editor at the Trillium. I've been on so many different podcasts and different networks talking about it. It's an issue that people are certainly passionate about. And I think, there's this sense that, and I always ask Jess the same thing every time she comes on, but there's this sense that the average person, the regular people like all of us in Ontario, a lot of them don't even think about FOI. They don't care about it. It's not on their mind. It's true. They don't wake up in the morning. They're thinking about their own bills and their own things they have to do. But when you ask them how important government transparency is and how important transparency is to democracy, they believe in that too, right?
Absolutely.
The polls show that over and over. And what the Ford government is doing is very concerning. And it's not because it's the Ford government or it's a conservative government or a liberal government. These laws have been in place for decades. This law has been in place for decades to ensure that taxpayers have a window into the world of where their tax dollars are going. And not just where you can request things that are from senior bureaucrats. You're able to request things that are from the offices of cabinet ministers, from the premier, from their political staffers. And, what's interesting is I really dove deep in, it's obviously an issue I know, Scott, but I'm not a professional on it, but I read tons about it. And one of the things that struck me was, people think, it's just journalists and opposition politicians that are using this tool, but that's actually it's like 4% of the requests are done by journalists. There's businesses that do these requests all the time. Individuals do these requests all the time. And so they're not just to unearth scandal, which they do sometimes. We've seen with the Greenbelt, the Skills Development Fund, the work that our team at the Trillium did. For sure that happens. But it also doubles as a deterrent, right? It's like governments would be theoretically be more careful not to do something stupid because they know that these documents are FOI.
That threat always exists, right?
It always exists. And every government has to put up with it. Even Kathleen Wynne, whether you loved or hated her, had an op-ed that she wrote yesterday saying the same thing. This is part of the business, as part of being the premier, is you put up with this among so many other things, that your documents are FOIable. And I think it is very concerning because sunlight disinfects, right? And what's the other saying? Democracy dies in darkness. We need to be able to see these things, understand what's happening. So I think it's a very important thing, and it's something we're not just covering as a news story and then moving on. We're really thinking about how we can challenge this, how we can get around this, how we can continue to advocate for this. It is hugely important. And I said in the piece, transparency is the oxygen of democracy. And it feels right now like the Ford government has their foot on our throats. And we're gasping for air, right? Yeah. I mean, this is really, really important stuff. And, again, it's not something that most Ontarians are going to wake up in the morning thinking about. But this is how we get less information about government when they change rules like this. And I don't mean to ramble. It's not just about the Ford government, because there's going to be other governments down the road. One day, who could be a long time from now, that there will be a different premier in Ontario, and they might not be a conservative. They might be a liberal. They might be an NDP. The same rules apply. You still should have access to those things. So I think it is an important issue, and I felt passionate enough to write about it. For everyone in the chain, because it's kind of our official stance on where we're at with these things, and I think it's hugely important. And I think it's something we're going to continue to talk about. As far as I know, as time we're recording right now, the bill hasn't passed yet. There's still some debate over it, but it's going to pass. I mean,
of course it will.
The Ford government has a big majority. So it's going to pass. And the question becomes, what do we do next? Is there something we can do?
Yeah. All right. Good stuff. You can read Frisco's piece on any one of our 27 local news sites across Ontario or at thetrillium.ca. Good stuff. Perfect. Okay, to tonight's program. A few months back, we did a program on the BOLO program, which highlighted, was it the top 25 fugitives
Yes.
in the country.
Be on the lookout, it stands
Be
for.
on the lookout. And what was interesting was the list of fugitives on their website almost came to life so that you could get a real modern day feel for what they looked like, their mannerisms,
How they moved,
how they looked. And now there's a little bit of an update.
Yeah, and it was great. And that interview really stuck out to me. Max Langlois is the executive director of the Bolo program, and it's not a police-run operation.
No.
It's a private thing, he was just so passionate about what it was. A wonder. I think we ended up talking to him for like 30 minutes, but it was just such a great conversation, and the how rewarding it is for him to be part of this and the difference it makes. And just we were talking today, like you said, in October they released this list of 25, and we'll flash it on the screen so people understand what it looks like. But just in the last 4 weeks, they've arrested 3 of these guys, including the number 1 most wanted guy.
Amazing.
I'm just looking through my notes here. This guy was wanted in Toronto. He was the number 1 fugitive on the list. He was wanted by Toronto police for a murder allegedly committed in 2025, and he was busted on March 5th. Another top fugitive, the number 14 on the list, was arrested in Oxford, Mississippi in March. And the third was arrested earlier in the month by the OPP. He was serving an 8-year sentence for armed robbery when he breached his parole and he got out of there. So this site does make a difference. It does have an impact. And I just thought on a day like this, it's great to go back and revisit that interview because, a lot of people don't know about this program.
Yes.
Like they may have seen it here and there, but they don't know anything about it. And just because Max was such a great interview and so passionate about what they do, I think it was super interesting. So we're going to spend some time listening to him again.
On today's episode, we're going to be shining a bright light on Canada's most wanted fugitives and the latest push to try to put them behind bars. Our guest is Max Langlois, Executive Director of the BOLO program, which stands for Be on the Lookout. Max, thanks for joining us tonight. We appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Can we start with a bit of a history lesson here, Max? BOLO was launched back in 2018. What is it? Who oversees it? And what's the goal?
So the BOLO program, our mission is to encourage citizens to be on the lookout for Canada's most wanted. So we indeed launched in May of 2018 in Toronto with a pilot project with the Toronto Police Service. Very humble beginning. Obviously we need to start somewhere. You need to walk before running. I think now we're more than jogging. I think now we're running. But in 2018, we had to start somewhere. BOLO is the main activity of a Canadian charitable organization called the Stéphane Chrétien Foundation. Stéphane Chrétien is the founder, president, and CEO of a private security company called Garda World that you may have heard of. Garda World is, started with a second mortgage of $25,000 on Stéphane's home in 1995, and now he's got 140,000 employees in 40 countries around the world. So it's a Canadian success story. And Stéphane, through his foundation, wanted to give back to the community through public safety, and the BOLO program is the main activity of his foundation.
So it's a not-for-profit, basically, then.
Yes, there's a difference between not-for-profits and charities. We're a charity, but yes, in the same, we're doing there's no profits coming out of this. We're doing this for the well-being of the community. If you're a charity in Canada, you have to spend money. You have to spend 5% of your assets every year. That's a rule of the Canada Revenue Agency. And that's what we do. We do it through the BOLO program.
It's a fascinating program. Is it something where the list changes over every year? Do some people carry over to the next year?
Yes, precisely. So we have a top 25 of Canada's most wanted that we update periodically in cooperation with our police partners. Usually there's one update every calendar year. So there was one update earlier this week in Vancouver. Cases that are outstanding can be reconducted. So about half of the top 25 we unveiled this week was not actually new. Mm-hmm. There were 9 arrests out of the previous top 25, and 13 cases that were outstanding were reconducted to the new top 25.
Max, how many of these fugitives have been caught since the program first launched?
So I'm going to give you statistics that were up to date Wednesday morning.
Okay.
Before we updated the top 25, because now we just added a bunch of new cases, so stats are distorted. But Wednesday morning, 9 a.m., we had featured 78 fugitives, and 42 of them had been located.
Do you know how many were caught specifically because of the BOLO program?
Yes and no. In reality, I speak with investigators, and I often have a good sense of how it happened. So, out of the 42 located suspects we've seen, some were 0% caught because of BOLO, and some were 100% caught because of BOLO, and everything in between. Sometimes it's just good police work. Sometimes it's like a tipster calling in and saying, I saw the BOLO campaign and I know where he is. So it's not an exact science, And I don't see the tips. They go to the police services and they're taken in charge by the investigators. So I'm not really in a position to know. But like I said, I often have conversations with investigators, and generally speaking, the word out there is that BOLO makes a big difference.
Max, how many rewards have been paid out? How big are they and who funds them?
So that's a good question, and I can only answer it in general terms. So since 2018, we've offered, I'm going to say probably like between 35 and 45 different rewards. So not all of the 78 cases we featured came with rewards. About half of them did. And out of these, I'm going to say about 40 rewards that we've funded, it's about like 35% that I've seen full or partial payments. And no, obviously, in all these cases, there was a direct correlation between the BOLO campaign and the end result, the arrest. If a payment is made, well, it's because someone deserved the money. And these rewards, well, they're part of the BOLO program. So they're funded by BOLO, they're managed by BOLO, and they're paid out by our police partners, or in certain cities by Crime Stoppers programs.
All right, let's get to this year's list. There's some pretty serious crimes attached to these 25 fugitives, some for murder, conspiracy, sexual interference. Of the 25, is there kind of a number one target?
Yes, sir. His name is Brian Fuentes Bramajo. He's wanted by the Toronto Police Service for murder.
What makes him stand out from the other 24?
We're a national program. So when we look at these cases, we have a committee doing that. And on that committee sit investigators from different police services across the country. So when we look at cases, we assess them based on our requirements. And then we need to prioritize them. And that case, was very particular because here was an alleged Quebec gang member, Montreal-based gang, who went to Toronto to allegedly kill someone, but his gang also has very strong links to Vancouver, to the lower mainland of British Columbia. So when you talk of Canadian quote-unquote case that deserves national attention, and for every Canadian to be on the lookout because it could potentially be anywhere. Well, that for us, that was ticking a lot of boxes.
It kind of leads to my next kind of dumb question, but how do these guys evade authorities and evade the public so well? If there's so much publicity, I mean, your website and your program, but also just what the police have put out, how do they do it?
Yeah, that's a very good question, and I get it often. How much time do you have?
We have about 3 hours.
So listen, first of all, police services do catch the vast majority of the suspects, the accused they're looking for. So that has to be acknowledged. Now, for the small percentage of accused who are not located, it's because they actively evade arrest. And when you actively evade arrest, that means you go out of your way to make sure that you don't get caught. What does that mean? That means severing ties with family members, friends, and associates. Well, it can also mean that these family members, friends, and associates actually assist you. It means like usually, not using your bank accounts, using what we call a burner phone. Sometimes it may mean leaving the country, changing, residences as often as possible, being very transient, or just like hiding somewhere. As simple as that, like in a basement somewhere. So it's not not everyone is good at that. It requires a level of attention that a lot of people don't have. In the end, everybody gets caught.
Max, we talked about the number one most wanted guy. There must be some other highlights from the list.
Yes, if you take the number two, who's been our number two for quite a while already, Al Boivin. So he's wanted for charges that may seem more superficial at the first look, but he's wanted for drug trafficking. But there's what I will call a gang war happening in Quebec right now. There's some new gangs who are contesting the sort of monopoly that the Hells Angels have gotten over the drug trade in the province for a while. And it's led to a lot of criminal activities being committed in our communities, including collateral victims, innocent collateral victims. So it's a high-profile case for the Quebec Provincial Police, and so it is for us as well. If you look at the number three, we're also Thomas McLean is also wanted for murder by the Toronto Police Service. Number four, Trésor Orimbert is wanted for murder by the Winnipeg Police Service. And the number five, Dylan Denise, is wanted for murder by the Montreal Police Service. So it's very typical for the top five to be made of people accused of murder. So Al Boivin on number two is a bit of an exception, but I like to say that the BOLO program has more judgment than policies. If you just look at if we were to rank these cases just by the charges, Al Boivin wouldn't be there. But there's a lot of stuff, obviously, below these charges. There are a lot of ramifications and a lot of impact for the safety of our communities. So he deserves that spot.
If any of those guys are watching this podcast right now, would you have a message for them? Is it even more, are they beyond the point of where you would say to someone, hey, it's time to turn yourself in?
My message is always the same to them. Call a lawyer and make arrangements to turn yourself in. Everybody wants this to go well. You're in a very difficult position. You need to be right every minute of every hour of every day. Like you got to look over your shoulder 24/7. And, and the police, the community, we just have to be right 1 minute. So it's a very uncomfortable position. And again, we just want this to go well for everyone. So just do like some other fugitives have done over the years. Call a lawyer and make arrangements to turn yourself in.
The one thing that's very clear is your organization does do a great job of publicizing this every year, because I do read about it every year. It gets a lot of attention. I think last year there was some life-size billboards or cardboard cutouts of everybody on stage. This year I think you had a police officer with a hoodie on and a mask of each of the 25 suspects. Sort of some interesting brainstorming going on behind the scenes for you guys to come up with these ideas.
Yes, so we took it to the next level this past Wednesday. This was like one of my objectives as the executive director of BOLO is to make this as real as possible, because it is real. These suspects, these accused, they're among us right now, and they will remain this afternoon, tonight, tomorrow, next week if we don't do something. So it's a message to be on the lookout altogether. But if I ask people to be on the lookout, I'm asking you a favor. Well, I want to try to make it as easy as possible for you. So over the years, we've perfected the science of making this as real as possible. So the life-size cutouts have been used. We've also used some very innovative engagement tools like an online contest on our website. We try to make these events, these top 25 updates, as sexy as possible for the media, because we do acknowledge that you need something good, to talk about. Someone asked me on Wednesday in Vancouver, what sort of difference does Bolo make? And I was like, well, no one will be here today talking about these fugitives if that wasn't of Bolo. Mm-hmm. So on Wednesday, we had literally spoof masks that were worn by police officers, and we had police officers of the right height, weight, ethnicity to wear them. So it was quite, it was a show, literally. It was like a play. We had like a staging area with 25 tables with like all the masks and the little signs and it's very difficult to see through these spandex spoof masks. So we also had uniformed members to walk in literally these suspects on stage as the press conference began. So, and then at the end of the press conference, obviously, all these guys had to be handcuffed. So, we had, so it's literally, we put on a show, but, the media play a vital role in amplifying what we do. And you do it anyway. When the police service issues a most wanted notice, you will talk about it. So Bolo is an extra platform that is used for that. And we like to serve you good media coverage on a silver platter.
Well, we appreciate that, Max. Yeah. You're also harnessing AI technology so that the mugshots on the website actually move. And if anybody has ever seen the Harry Potter movies, that's the first thing I thought of was the moving pictures on the walls at Hogwarts. Max, how is that technology helping you out?
Yeah, I think it's fabulous. Going back to what I was saying earlier, this should be as easy as possible for people. So just to have like a static picture is not really user-friendly. And, and here I'm just not talking about the picture itself, but the quality of the picture. So if someone is wanted for murder and has never been arrested before, police services, they need to find a picture of the suspect. So often they will resort to get a driver's license picture or a passport picture. But often these pictures, although they're taken with $3,000 cameras, they're saved in a very poor format. So you end up with, someone was asking me the other day, if you take a picture with your iPhone right now of the wall, it's going to be 2 megabytes. Sometimes we get pictures that are 20 kilobytes. So that's like, 1,000th of, anyway. So the resolution has always been a problem. Sometimes pictures are good, sometimes they're bad. So the first thing we're doing systematically now with all these pictures is that we AI enhance them. So we reconstruct the pixels somehow. And the other layer we put to it is that we animate them. And it's incredibly simple now. So, why having a static picture when you can give people a better idea of how the head moves back and forward and, the facial expression. And it's not about telling people what these suspects look like right now. It's about giving them a better clue of how they may look like.
Mm-hmm. I'm not going to lie. I found myself staring at it for longer than I probably should have. It's really well done.
Good. That's what I want.
Yeah.
So I think if I see one of them, I would actually notice them now.
Max, so let's speak to that. Bottom line, what should people do if they run into or see one of these suspects?
First of all, you don't do anything yourself. These the vast majority of these suspects are considered armed and dangerous. So we live in a country in which we have very competent police services that we can trust. So you don't do anything. As soon as you're out of the way, you call 911, and then you report what you just saw. Now, if you have something to report that is not about you seeing something right there, right now, you call the police or you call Crime Stoppers. If there's a reward offered, more and more, and I'm not going to go into the detail, but you have to call specifically the police because these tips, they have to be actioned right now. If, for example, you call to say, well, I know where Mr. John Doe will be tonight. Well, obviously, it's very time sensitive. So that's why the police, they want you to talk to an investigator. So, you know, with the Toronto Police Service, with the Winnipeg Police Service, they've activated 24/7 specific numbers for BOLO cases. So you always talk to a police officer, and it's confidential.
Good to know. Good advice. A couple more questions, then. We appreciate all your time, Max. What drives you personally to do this? Obviously, it's a big task. It's one that keeps you up at night, I'm sure, and I assume one that carries a little bit of risk as well.
Yeah, like all jobs, I believe, but this is special. I will acknowledge it. It's definitely the most rewarding job I've ever had. You know, even if I fulfill myself more in future positions, you know, I think in terms of doing something that's rewarding and seeing the real impacts, you know, I don't think any other job can top this. I'll give you an example. Our previous number one, Dave Turmel, who was also wanted for drug trafficking in Quebec, similar to Al Boivin, our current number two, he got arrested, and now it's fully acknowledged publicly that, you know, the gang war that I was referring to earlier has actually slowed down in the metropolitan Quebec City area. So it has, like, we don't do, like, obviously I don't arrest anyone. The police do. We try to help. We try to give these cases that little push sometimes that's needed. And in that case, you know, we overall contributed to that push. So it makes a difference, and more it's acknowledged. So yeah, I sleep well. I sleep very well.
All right, there's Max Langlois, the executive director of the BOLO program. Thanks, Max. Happy Thanksgiving to you and yours.
Likewise. Thank you.
Great chat with Max Langlois at the BOLO program. If you haven't checked out their website, strongly encourage you to do so. It is boloprogram.org, and obviously some fantastic results.
Yeah, and I think there's about half of them now that have the big arrested.
Yeah, love that.
Speaking of fantastic results, we were talking about that editorial at the beginning of the show that
we
wrote about the FOI program, and one of the Ford government's making a lot of arguments that are kind of not sticking up very well about why they're doing this. And one of the lines that the business minister said during the press conference was like, you know, this legislation was written like 10 years before the Spice Girls were even a thing. Basically insinuating like, you know, come on, the Spice Girls, they were a thing a long time ago, right?
Yeah.
Which I'm sure they wouldn't be thrilled to hear that.
I wouldn't think so.
But I actually linked back to that clip, and our team cut it really quickly and put it up. So it's on the Closer Look YouTube page if you want to check it out.
Right.
I think it's getting some views. And
yes, it is.
You know, if Scary Spice or Posh Spice,
yes.
What are the other ones?
That's all.
I don't know. Yeah, if any of them chime in.
You actually included a lyric to one of their songs, I think. Did you not? In the editorial?
In the editorial, I had to Google it, but it fit perfect.
That's because you're so
Yes,
young.
I was Googling the Spice Girls. That's why it's on my computer. I was trying to find a song lyric.
Just for the record.
That matched.
In case HR is tracking.
And just for the record, yeah, and if the Spice Girls happen to know any of them, there's 5 of them. Just, you know, there were 5.
Good
girl
to know.
Power. If any of them want to jump on the show and talk about how they feel about the minister using Spice Girls to make a point of how old this legislation is, they are welcome anytime. We'll make the time change work. They can
absolutely
jump on
will.
from across the pond.
Posh, you can reach out at closerlook@villagemedia.ca anytime.
I think she watches the show anyway.
I think I asked this before. That's Beckham's wife, Victoria Beckham.
Posh
right?
is
Posh is Victoria Beckham.
Beckham's.
All right. Follow us for more Spice Girls trivia right here. closerlookpodcast.ca. For Zach Trunzo, executive producer of this evening's program, and Michael Friscolanti, our editor-in-chief, I'm Scott Sexsmith. Thanks for your time. See you tomorrow night, 7 o'clock, right here on Closer Look.
Briscoe & Scott's wardrobe provided in part by Moore's Clothing for Men.